Hi, I'm Gleb Pankhurst, and welcome to The Aligned Path, a space where we explore living in alignment with your inner being, trusting the unseen, and letting life flow to you. Whether this is your first time here or you've been listening for a while, today's episode is for anyone new to the concepts of manifestation, the law of attraction, or inner alignment. I'm sharing a real-life breakdown of how this actually works, simple, repeatable, and something you can try for yourself today. No need to believe in anything, no need to figure it all out. Just come with a little curiosity and let me walk you through a gentle way to test it for yourself. Let's start with something I've heard many times while watching clips of Esther Hicks. As soon as you think a thought, it begins to gain momentum. Hold that thought for about 17 seconds and it gains enough momentum for another like thought to join it. Keep going to about 68 seconds and you've built enough focus and momentum for things to start showing up in your physical world. And if you stay focused even longer, like I did during the sound bath process that I'll walk you through in the next segments, you're giving it significant focus and energy, and momentum ensues. That process is all about releasing resistance and entering a meditative, aligned state. And that's important, because from that aligned state, you can now receive those inspired ideas, and it's easier to stay on the trajectory from one inspired idea to the next. You can hold that focus more easily and naturally for the duration of the sound bath, giving incredible momentum to those ideas and that focus, which then directly impacts how quickly and vividly they show up in your physical experience. What actually inspired me to test this wasn't just hearing the 17-second principle again. It was a story I heard involving a consultation between a woman and a facilitator, Esther, who was sharing Abraham's teachings. This woman came in quite skeptical and resistant. Yes, she came with a clear expectation of receiving help, and she did. That's exactly what she got. She just didn't want it in the form it arrived. She was resistant to the help coming in that way. So the facilitator responded by introducing two light, resistance-free subjects into the conversation: butterflies and blue stained glass. They talked about them lightly and playfully for long enough to give those thoughts momentum. Even though Esther was the one delivering the message, and the message wasn't intended for her, those thoughts were active within her too. But since they weren't her desires, and because she forgot about the conversation shortly after, there was zero resistance. That's why what happened next was so powerful. Not long after, Esther found herself surrounded by butterflies, so many that they were flying into her mouth. And before heading to lunch, she entered a shop and saw an entire wall of blue stained glass. She hadn't been trying to manifest anything. It was just active, easy, and resistance-free, and it showed up in vivid, undeniable ways. We don't know what happened to the woman being consulted, but what we do know is that moment belonged to Esther, and it was a perfect example of what can happen when a subject is active and resistance-free. That's the kind of clean unfolding I was curious to try for myself. A thought is a manifestation, just like a feeling or an idea. The only difference is momentum. Physical form is simply a thought that's been given focus, energy, and consistency. That realization led me to test it in my own life. One Sunday, I prepared for my weekly meditative bath, a quiet, intentional space with sound bowls and Tibetan monks chanting that helps me switch off and connect deeply. That story of the consultation was still fresh in my mind, and I felt curious to test it. I relaxed, opened up, and became receptive. The first thought to come was butterflies. No effort, no analysis, just a simple image. Then two more impressions popped in, pink and yellow. I didn't chase them, but then decided to experiment by gently adding a condition. I wanted to see pink and yellow on the upper bodies of two people, in that order, to test how quickly a manifestation arrives when the thought is clean and resistance-free versus when there's even a little resistance present. After the bath, I turned on YouTube, and immediately butterflies appeared on the screen. That was the law of attraction in motion, responding to my focus and attention. Then the colors began appearing, pink and yellow, in clothing, but not yet in the exact way I'd asked for. I saw pants, socks, scarves, bits and pieces of the request, but not the full picture. Now this is where most people might get discouraged, but I didn't. I didn't get frustrated that it wasn't showing up exactly how I'd envisioned it. I appreciated it as it was becoming. By appreciating it, I stayed aligned with what I was asking for, allowing the momentum to keep building. I kept acknowledging and appreciating what was showing up, even if it wasn't perfect, and that softened the resistance. Because here's what I've come to understand. Resistance is like a scattering field. It scrambles the signal. You're not able to clearly receive what your inner being is already offering. The manifestation is coming. It is showing up. But when resistance is present, it becomes harder to see and translate the fullness of it. The universe is always delivering your manifestations, and you're able to perceive them, often in fragments, hints, and echoes. And when you appreciate those, the field begins to clear. You release enough resistance to receive the full signal. Not long after, perhaps within an hour or so, I was watching Britain's Got Talent, and there they were, the two female judges seated in the exact order I'd envisioned, wearing pink and yellow. All I could see was them and their tops. That moment didn't come from control or effort. It arrived not through force, but through appreciation, ease, and trust in the unfolding. The deeper lesson I was testing, what happens when a thought is resistance-free versus slightly resistant, and how that affects the timing of the unfolding. Resistance doesn't stop the momentum of your wanted, but it does slow it right down. Resistance clouds the signal and delays clarity. Releasing that resistance is key. Appreciation does that effortlessly. That shift is what made the pink and yellow tops appear exactly as imagined. It wasn't about effort, it was about softening, allowing, and trusting. The colors began showing up everywhere. I'd see them in shops, on bottles, on packaging, on signs. At the chiropractor's office, they were right there on the receptionist's desk. On my walks, on people's clothing, on random objects. Combinations appeared over and over again. And it didn't stop. For weeks, I kept seeing them, pink and yellow, because I kept appreciating them. That steady appreciation kept the momentum moving in the direction of what I wanted, allowing it to keep building with ease. At one point, I added a new element, blue, to the original sequence of pink and yellow. It wasn't a big decision. It felt light and natural, like a natural extension of the fun. And sure enough, pink, yellow, and blue began showing up in that exact order, over and over again. By that stage, I'd already received the full manifestation I originally asked for. 2 women on screen wearing pink and yellow tops in that specific order. That manifestation had landed. It felt complete. So from that moment on, it no longer mattered how the colors showed up. I'd released the expectation that they had to appear in a specific way. I dropped the condition. That release made it even easier to appreciate the fragments, because I was no longer measuring them against a specific outcome. The attachment had softened, and that allowed the colors to show up with even more variety and frequency. Sometimes in clothing, sometimes in objects, sometimes in ways I hadn't expected. I could receive them more easily because I wasn't filtering or doubting. I was just enjoying. One moment stood out. I visited a large park I didn't usually go to, one with a circular pathway lined with trees. On nearly every tree around that outer path, there were balloons, 2 tied to each tree, one pink, one yellow. Pink on the left, yellow on the right. The entire perimeter of the park was decorated like this. I hadn't seen anything like it before. And on the same walk, passed 2 men wearing tops in those colors, in that exact order. After a few more weeks of play, the energy around the game began to settle. I had proven it to myself, many times over. It felt complete. I naturally moved on to other things, and as my attention shifted, so did the frequency of the appearances. They didn't stop entirely, they just came less often. Then, the day after writing this podcast, I felt inspired to go back to the same park, and the balloons were up again. The same arrangements, the same colors, and as I walked, I saw people wearing those 3 colors, pink, yellow, and blue, in tops and other items of clothing, in that exact sequence. It had returned, all because I'd been thinking and talking about it again while preparing this episode. And later that evening, I watched The Voice, and there was a contestant wearing a top with butterflies sewn onto it, not printed, but actually stitched on. These butterflies were all kinds of colors, but front and center there were 3 in a row, pink, yellow, and blue, in that exact order. This practice, this play, was never about control. It was always about alignment, curiosity, appreciation, and ease. Here's your invitation. Get into a good feeling place. Take a few moments to relax, to feel at ease, or to tune into something that genuinely uplifts you. That might be during a walk, or listening to music, meditating, laughing with a friend. Anything that naturally brings you into alignment. Let the idea come to you. From that aligned state, you'll often find that an idea just pops into your mind. A word, a color, a symbol, a playful thought. Don't go searching for it. Let it land gently. That's the perfect starting point. Stay with it, softly and simply. Once the idea has arrived, hold your focus there, gently. If you can stay with it for 68 seconds or more, that's enough to build enough momentum for things to start showing up in your physical reality. You don't have to meditate for 30 or 60 minutes like I did, but if you enjoy that, go for it. The longer the aligned focus, the more energy and clarity you give to the unfolding. Then let it go. This is key. Don't watch for it or measure whether it's arrived yet. Let it be. When you release the need to track it, you release the resistance, and that's when it begins to show up in fragments and echoes and eventually in full form. Appreciate it as it becomes. Notice the hints, patterns, and near misses that begin to appear. These fragments are not just signs, they are the manifestation in motion. When you meet them with appreciation, you lower resistance and allow the full experience to come into view more easily and clearly. You don't need a sound bath, but if you enjoy using sound or visuals to help quiet your mind and bring you into presence, it can be a beautiful way to enter a meditative state. Whether it's sound bowls, chanting, ambient music, or even just a steady visual pattern, the key is focus. If that kind of immersion resonates with you, I invite you to explore it. When you hold too tightly to something or keep watching for it to arrive, you're usually focused on its absence, and that focus brings more of the same. But when you notice and appreciate the fragments, the signs, the near misses, the patterns, you ease that resistance. And in doing so, you open the way for the full manifestation to come through. Your focus is powerful. Your allowing is transformative. Trust the process, deepen your connection with your inner being, and when you feel ready, you can apply this process to bigger desires, always from a place of ease. Let what wants to come, come. Let the universe show you how effortlessly it can. If you want to begin today, start first thing in the morning. 17 minutes meditating, watching, or listening to something positive to set your tone. In the evening, take a walk in nature, aiming for satisfaction. Every Sunday, give yourself an intentional meditative sound bath reset for the week ahead. And your dreams, record them, feel into them, let them speak to you. These are the rhythms that brought me back to myself. You're not broken, you're not behind, you're just out of sync with part of you that already knows who you are. And the more you practice alignment, gently, consistently, the more that version of you becomes your everyday. Want the full story behind this rhythm? Go back to episode 1, The Block. And if you want even more support with these rhythms, keep an eye out for my new guided meditation episodes coming soon. Each one is designed to help you reset, realign, and return to yourself whenever you need it. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'm Glenn Pankhurst, and this is The Aligned Path. I'll meet you in the next episode. For all the links to listen, follow, and read, just head to my bio wherever you're listening or following. That's where you'll find everything in one place, including the latest episodes, articles, and all my social channels. If this speaks to you, please subscribe, review, like, share, comment, or tag a friend. Let's keep walking this path together. And I'd love to know, what are you working on? What are you letting go of? What are you ready for today? You can comment on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, or directly on the articles. Let others feel the ripple of your insights.